Close your eyes for a moment and imagine this. 5,000 years ago, while most of humanity lived in scattered villages, a handful of extraordinary societies were achieving the impossible. They were building cities that housed tens of thousands. They were inventing writing systems that would preserve their thoughts for millennia. They were charting the stars, performing brain surgery, and creating legal codes that still influence our laws today. What if I told you that civilizations emerged independently across the globe, separated by oceans and mountains, yet developed remarkably similar solutions to human problems? That farmers along the Nile River somehow paralleled innovations happening simultaneously beside the Yellow River in China? That people who never met, who didn't know the other existed, built pyramids on opposite sides of the planet? These weren't accidents. These were the cradles of human history, the ancient civilizations that transformed us from wandering hunter-gatherers into builders of empires. Today we're journeying through 5 of history's most influential ancient societies: Mesopotamia, Egypt, the Indus Valley, China, and Mesoamerica. We'll uncover the innovations that changed everything, the mysteries that still baffle archaeologists, and the legacies that shape your life right now, whether you realize it or not. But here's the haunting truth. Some of these mighty civilizations vanished almost without a trace, leaving behind more questions than answers. By the end of this journey, you'll understand how these ancient peoples laid the very foundations of modern society, and why one of them remains history's greatest unsolved mystery. Let's step back in time. Mesopotamia, the first civilization. Picture the land between 2 rivers, the Tigris and Euphrates, in what is now Iraq. Around 3500 BCE, something unprecedented happened here. In the scorching flatlands of southern Mesopotamia, the Sumerians built the world's first true civilization. The city of Uruk, with its population exploding past 50,000 people, became humanity's first metropolis. But sheer size wasn't the revolution. The Sumerians created something that would change human consciousness forever. Writing? Not simple pictograms but cuneiform, wedge-shaped marks pressed into wet clay tablets that could record everything from grocery lists to epic poetry. Think about that for a second. Before writing, every story, every law, every piece of knowledge died with the people who held it. One generation's wisdom could vanish in a single plague or war. But with cuneiform, the Sumerians achieved immortality. The Epic of Gilgamesh, composed around 2100 BCE, tells of a king's quest for eternal life, and ironically, by writing it down, the Sumerians gave their own culture exactly that. The Sumerians didn't stop at writing. They invented the wheel around 3500 BCE, not just for transportation but first for pottery making. They developed mathematics based on the number 60, which is why we still have 60 seconds in a minute and 360 degrees in a circle. When you check the time, you're using Sumerian mathematics. Their priests studied the heavens obsessively from atop massive stepped pyramids called ziggurats. They identified the zodiac constellations we still reference today. They tracked Venus with such precision that their astronomical records contain observations spanning centuries. But Mesopotamia wasn't just the Sumerians. Around 2334 BCE, Sargon of Akkad conquered the Sumerian city-states and created history's first empire, the Akkadian Empire, stretching from the Persian Gulf to the Mediterranean. Then came the Babylonians. If you've ever heard someone say, "an eye for an eye," you're quoting Hammurabi's Code, the world's first comprehensive legal system, carved into a massive stone stele around 1750 BCE. This wasn't just ancient brutality, it was revolutionary justice. For the first time, punishment was proportional to the crime, and crucially, laws were written down for everyone to see, not subject to a ruler's whim. The Babylonians took Sumerian astronomy and mathematics to staggering heights. They could predict lunar eclipses. They developed algebra. Babylonian mathematicians solved quadratic equations, the same ones students struggle with today in high school algebra. But here's what truly sets Mesopotamia apart. It wasn't just one civilization. It was a crucible where cultures conquered each other, blended, and built upon previous knowledge for over 3,000 years. Sumerians became Akkadians, who became Babylonians, who became Assyrians, each inheriting and advancing what came before. When you write your name, you're using an alphabet descended from cuneiform. When you divide an hour into minutes, you're thinking like a Sumerian mathematician. When you read laws posted publicly, you're benefiting from Hammurabi's innovation. Mesopotamia earned its name, the land between two rivers. But it gave us something greater, the birth of civilization itself. Ancient Egypt, timeless monuments. While Mesopotamia saw empires rise and fall in rapid succession, another civilization emerged along a single life-giving river. A civilization so stable, so enduring, that it would last over 3,000 years virtually unchanged. Ancient Egypt was the gift of the Nile. Every summer, like clockwork, the river flooded, not with destructive chaos like Mesopotamian rivers, but with predictable, nourishing precision. The floods deposited nutrient-rich silt across the floodplains, creating a narrow strip of extraordinarily fertile land cutting through an ocean of sand. This predictability shaped everything about Egyptian civilization. Where Mesopotamians lived in anxiety, building walls against invaders and unpredictable floods, Egyptians developed confidence, even optimism. Their desert borders provided natural protection. Their river provided abundance. They had the luxury of building for eternity. And build for eternity they did. Around 2560 BCE, Pharaoh Khufu completed the Great Pyramid of Giza, the only surviving wonder of the ancient world. For over 3,800 years, it was the tallest human-made structure on Earth. Let that sink in. From the time of its construction until the 1300 CE, nothing built by human hands stood taller. How did they do it? Here's where we need to separate myth from fact. Contrary to popular belief, Hebrew slaves didn't build the pyramids. They weren't even in Egypt yet according to the archaeological timeline. Instead, recent excavations have revealed something far more interesting. The pyramids were built by skilled Egyptian workers who were paid in beer and bread, living in workers' villages nearby. We found their bakeries, their medical facilities where broken bones were set, even graffiti where work crews boasted about their productivity. These weren't slaves. They were organized labor forces rotating in and out, likely during flood seasons when farming was impossible. But the pyramids are just the beginning. The Egyptians pioneered medical practices that wouldn't be surpassed for millennia. The Edwin Smith Papyrus, dating to around 1600 BCE but copying knowledge from centuries earlier, describes 48 types of injuries with rational, non-magical treatments. Egyptian physicians performed surgery, set broken bones, and even attempted brain surgery. They invented a form of paper from papyrus reeds. The word paper literally comes from papyrus. They developed one of the earliest writing systems, hieroglyphics, which combined logographic and alphabetic elements so complex that it took scholars until 1822 to decipher it using the Rosetta Stone. Egyptian art and architecture followed strict conventions for over 3,000 years. The profile view of pharaohs, the specific proportions of the human body in paintings, the symbolic use of size to denote importance. These weren't accidents but deliberate choices that remained remarkably consistent across millennia. Why this stability? The answer lies in Ma'at, the Egyptian concept of cosmic order, truth, and justice. Pharaohs weren't just kings. They were living gods responsible for maintaining Ma'at, ensuring the Nile would flood, the sun would rise, and chaos would be held at bay. This wasn't simply religion, it was the organizing principle of their entire society. The Egyptian obsession with the afterlife drove much of their innovation. Mummification required sophisticated understanding of anatomy and chemistry. The preservation techniques were so effective that we can study 3,000-year-old tissues and even determine what diseases pharaohs suffered from. Ramesses II, who died around 1213 BCE, still has red hair visible on his mummy today. If ancient innovations fascinate you, you're going to want to subscribe to this channel. We're diving deep into lost technologies and ancient mysteries that modern science is only now beginning to understand. Hit that button now so you don't miss what's coming. Egyptian temples weren't just places of worship. They were economic powerhouses owning vast lands, employing thousands, functioning as banks and granaries. The Temple of Ammonius at Karnak, built and expanded over 2,000 years, covers over 200 acres, larger than many modern cities' downtown areas. But here's what might surprise you most. Despite their obsession with eternity, even mighty Egypt eventually fell. Alexander the Great conquered it in 332 BCE, followed by Roman rule. When Cleopatra VII died in 30 BCE, she wasn't just a queen dying, she was the final pharaoh of a 3,000-year dynasty. Ancient Egypt didn't collapse suddenly, it slowly transformed into something else, absorbed into new empires. Yet Egypt's legacy proved more enduring than its political power. Greek scholars studied in Alexandria. Roman emperors were fascinated by Egyptian wisdom. Modern democracies still use obelisks as monuments. Egypt showed the world that human achievement could literally stand for millennia. The Indus Valley, the forgotten empire. Now we come to history's most tantalizing mystery, a civilization so advanced it rivals anything in Mesopotamia or Egypt, yet so enigmatic that we still can't read their writing or know what they called themselves. Around 2600 BCE, while Egyptians were building pyramids, a sophisticated urban civilization flourished across the Indus River Valley in what is now Pakistan and northwest India. The Harappan civilization, named after the first excavated site, built cities that would make modern urban planners jealous. Walk the streets of Mohenjo-Daro or Harappa in your mind for a moment. What you'd see would astound you. These weren't haphazard medieval tangles of alleys. These were grid-planned cities with streets intersecting at perfect right angles. Every house connected to an elaborate sewage system with covered drains running beneath the streets. We're talking about indoor plumbing in 2500 BCE, something most European cities wouldn't achieve until the 19th century. The standardization is remarkable. Bricks across hundreds of Harappan sites follow an exact ratio, 4:2:1 in length, width, and height. Weights and measures were standardized across the entire civilization, spanning an area larger than ancient Egypt and Mesopotamia combined. Someone was enforcing standards across 1.5 million square kilometers, but we don't know who or how. Here's what makes the Harappans unique. We found no palaces. No temples clearly identified as such. No obvious evidence of a king or priestly class. No weapons of war. No art glorifying conquest or divine rulers. In Mesopotamia and Egypt, power was everywhere. In ziggurats, pyramids, royal tombs, and conquest records. In the Indus Valley? Silence. Either they organized society in a completely different way that we can't recognize, or the evidence is so subtle we're missing it. Some archaeologists suggest they might have been governed by merchant councils or religious leaders who didn't advertise their power through monuments. Others wonder if their egalitarian-looking cities actually reflect a more equal society than anywhere else in the ancient world. What we do know is they were phenomenal traders. Harappan seals, small carved stones used to mark goods, have been found in Mesopotamia, showing trade networks spanning thousands of miles. They traded cotton. They may have been the first to domesticate cotton, precious stones, timber, and metals. Their ships sailed from the ports of Lathal and Dalavira across the Arabian Sea. Their craftsmanship was extraordinary. Harappan jewelry shows microscopic drilling techniques we can barely replicate without modern tools. They created shell bangles, carnelian beads, and copper tools of remarkable quality. The famous dancing girl bronze statue from Mohenjo-Daro, barely 4 inches tall, shows anatomical understanding and artistic sophistication that rivals anything from Bronze Age Mediterranean cultures. But then, around 1900 BCE, something happened. The great cities began to decline. Population decreased. Trade networks weakened. Buildings fell into disrepair. By 1300 BCE, the urban civilization had completely collapsed, and the region reverted to scattered villages. What caused this collapse? Here's where evidence gets frustrating. We have theories but no definitive answers. Climate change likely played a role. The Gagarhakra river system that fed many cities appears to have dried up or changed course. Some sites show evidence of flooding. Archaeological evidence suggests no massive invasion or conquest, just gradual abandonment. The cruel irony is that the Harappans left thousands of inscriptions on their seals and pottery. If we could read their script, we might answer every question. Scholars have been trying to crack the Indus script for a century with no success. Is it even a full writing system? Some researchers argue it might be proto-writing, symbols representing ideas but not complete language. Others insist it's a full script we simply haven't deciphered yet. Without written records, this advanced civilization that mastered urban planning, long-distance trade, and standardized manufacturing across a vast territory remains frustratingly out of reach. They're the forgotten empire, remembered only through their ruins but not their words. The Indus Valley civilization reminds us of a humbling truth. No matter how advanced, how organized, how successful a civilization becomes, it can still vanish, leaving future generations to wonder who they were and what they knew. Ancient China, Dynasty and Innovation. While the Indus Valley civilization was collapsing, another great culture was consolidating power thousands of miles to the east, along the Yellow River in China. Here we encounter a civilization that, unlike the others, never truly disappeared. It transformed, adapted, and continued in an unbroken cultural thread to the present day. Chinese civilization emerged from Neolithic cultures around 1600 BCE with the Shang dynasty, the first Chinese dynasty we can verify through both archaeological evidence and written records. The Shang ruled the Yellow River Valley for over 500 years, and what they left behind reveals a society of remarkable sophistication. The Shang developed writing on oracle bones, animal bones and turtle shells used for divination. Priests would carve questions for the gods, apply heat to the bones, and interpret the resulting cracks as divine answers. These oracle bone inscriptions give us the earliest examples of Chinese characters, many still recognizable in modern Chinese writing. This isn't just historical trivia, it means modern Chinese can sometimes read texts from 3,500 years ago. Imagine if English speakers could read Sumerian cuneiform as easily. But the Shang were more than fortune tellers. They were master metallurgists who created bronze vessels of breathtaking complexity and beauty. Shang bronze work wasn't equaled anywhere in the ancient world. Massive ritual vessels weighing hundreds of pounds, covered in intricate designs, cast using piece mold techniques rather than the lost wax method used in the West. Chinese bronzesmiths were innovators working on an entirely different technological path. Around 1046 BCE, the Zhou dynasty overthrew the Shang and introduced a concept that would shape Chinese politics for millennia: the mandate of heaven. The idea was revolutionary. Rulers governed not by birth alone, but by divine approval that could be withdrawn if they ruled unjustly. This meant rebellion could be legitimate if a dynasty became corrupt. The Zhou didn't just conquer. They created philosophical justification for their rule that every subsequent dynasty would claim. The Zhou period, especially the later Warring States era from 475 to 221 BCE, became China's most intellectually fertile period. This is when Chinese philosophy exploded into life. Confucius, who lived from 551 to 479 BCE, developed ideas about social harmony, filial piety, and proper governance that still influence Chinese culture today. Laozi, semi-legendary founder of Taoism, offered an alternative vision emphasizing harmony with nature and skepticism of rigid social structures. Think about this. While Greek philosophers like Socrates were developing Western thought, Chinese philosophers were independently developing complex ethical systems on the other side of the world. No contact between them, yet both traditions grappled with fundamental questions about how to live well and govern justly. Chinese innovation wasn't just philosophical. During the Han Dynasty, 206 BC 220 CE, Chinese inventors created paper around 105 CE, over 1,000 years before it appeared in Europe. They invented the seismograph to detect earthquakes, the wheelbarrow for transporting goods, and deep drilling techniques to extract brine for salt production. The Silk Road, established during the Han Dynasty, connected China to Central Asia, India, the Middle East, and eventually Rome. Chinese silk became so prized in Rome that it was literally worth its weight in gold. Roman writers complained about the trade imbalance, gold flowing east to China for luxury goods. This early globalization meant Chinese innovations could spread westward, and goods and ideas from the West reached China. But here's what makes China unique among ancient civilizations: continuity. Egypt fell to foreign conquerors and became something else. Mesopotamian civilizations succeeded each other but didn't maintain cultural continuity. The Indus Valley disappeared. But Chinese civilization, despite periods of fragmentation and conquest, maintained cultural identity. Dynasties changed, borders shifted, but the idea of China persisted. This continuity was partly geographical. The Yellow River Valley in North China Plain provided a coherent agricultural base. But it was also cultural and linguistic. Chinese writing, unlike alphabetic systems, didn't fundamentally change. The philosophical traditions established during the Zhou period remained influential. The bureaucratic examination system that emerged later created a scholarly class loyal to Chinese culture rather than any specific ruler. When you use paper, drink tea, domesticated in China during the Shang dynasty, eat with chopsticks, or even use an umbrella, another Chinese invention, you're participating in traditions stretching back thousands of years to the Yellow River Valley. Ancient China teaches us that civilizations don't have to follow the pattern of rise and collapse. With the right cultural foundations, they can adapt, transform, and endure across millennia. Mesoamerica, Maya and Aztec wonders. Now we leap across the Pacific to a completely different world, the Americas, where sophisticated civilizations emerged entirely independent of Old World influence. No contact with Mesopotamia, Egypt, India, or China. No shared technologies or ideas. Yet they built pyramids, developed writing, created complex calendars, and built cities rivaling anything in Europe. The Maya civilization, flourishing from around 2000 BCE to 1500 CE across southern Mexico, Guatemala, Belize, and Honduras, achieved mathematical and astronomical sophistication that staggers modern scientists. The Maya invented the concept of zero independently, one of only a few cultures worldwide to do so. Think about trying to do complex mathematics without zero. The Maya not only had zero but used a base 20 numerical system more elegant in some ways than our base 10 system. Their calendar system puts ours to shame in complexity. They actually used multiple interlocking calendars: the 260-day Tzolk'in sacred calendar, the 365-day Hab solar calendar, and the long count tracking vast stretches of time. The long count is so precise that Maya astronomers could calculate the length of the solar year to 365.2420 days, accurate to within 17 seconds of the modern calculation made with atomic clocks. How did they achieve this without telescopes? Obsessive observation over centuries, recorded meticulously on stone monuments and bark paper books called codices. Maya astronomers could predict Venus's movements, solar eclipses, and lunar cycles with stunning accuracy. When Spanish conquistadors arrived in the 1500s, European astronomy wasn't significantly more advanced than what the Maya had achieved centuries earlier. But the Maya weren't just stargazers. They built massive stone cities in dense jungle without metal tools, wheeled vehicles, or beasts of burden. Tikal, at its peak around 700 CE, housed an estimated 100,000 people. The central precinct alone contains over 3,000 structures. The main pyramid, Temple 4, rises 212 feet, taller than a 20-story building, constructed entirely of hand-cut limestone blocks. Maya cities featured sophisticated water management systems with reservoirs, aqueducts, and filtration systems using zeolite and quartz sand, essentially ancient water purification. Recent LiDAR surveys have revealed that Maya civilization was far more extensive than previously thought, with cities connected by sophisticated road networks hidden beneath jungle canopy. The Maya developed a full writing system, glyphs representing both sounds and concepts, making it one of only a few fully developed writing systems in human history to emerge independently. For centuries after the Spanish conquest, Maya glyphs remained undeciphered. It wasn't until the 1950s to 1980s that scholars finally cracked the code, revealing Maya history recorded in their own words. What the glyphs revealed surprised everyone. Maya history wasn't peaceful stargazers contemplating the cosmos. It was full of warfare, political intrigue, alliances, and brutal power struggles between city-states. Kings captured rivals and sacrificed them in elaborate ceremonies. The jungle paradise imagined by early scholars was actually a complex landscape of competing powers. The Maya civilization didn't collapse all at once, but many southern lowland cities were abandoned between 800 to 900 CE. Drought appears to have been a major factor. Tree ring studies and sediment cores show severe, prolonged droughts that would have devastated agriculture in the limestone plateau where water doesn't accumulate easily. Warfare intensified over dwindling resources. Political systems collapsed. But Maya people didn't disappear. Millions of Maya descendants live in Mexico and Central America today, maintaining languages and traditions. Further north, the Aztec Empire emerged in central Mexico in the 1300s CE, building their capital Tenochtitlan on an island in Lake Texcoco. When Spanish conquistador Hernán Cortés first saw Tenochtitlan in 1519, he compared it to Venice and estimated its population at over 200,000, larger than any city in Spain at the time. The Aztecs built this megalopolis in an unlikely place using chinampas, artificial floating gardens constructed from lake mud and vegetation. These floating gardens were so productive they could produce 7 corn crops per year. The entire city was connected by canals and causeways, with aqueducts bringing fresh water from springs miles away. At the heart of Tenochtitlan stood the Templo Mayor, a massive pyramid where Aztec priests performed ceremonies including human sacrifice. The Aztecs didn't invent human sacrifice, it was practiced across Mesoamerica, but they practiced it on an industrial scale, believing it necessary to keep the sun rising and the universe functioning. Spanish accounts describe thousands sacrificed at major ceremonies, though the numbers are debated by modern scholars. Aztec society was sophisticated despite practices we find abhorring. They had mandatory public education. Every child, regardless of class, attended school. They had a complex legal system with courts handling everything from property disputes to murder trials. They built botanical gardens and zoos displaying plants and animals from across their empire. Aztec poetry celebrated love, nature, and the transience of life with sophisticated metaphor and emotion. If you're amazed by how much these ancient cultures achieved, imagine what we'll uncover next. Subscribe now because we're exploring even more mind-blowing civilizations and mysteries that history forgot. The tragic irony of Mesoamerican civilizations is that they were flourishing when Europeans arrived. These weren't lost civilizations that collapsed from internal problems. They were conquered, their books burned, their temples destroyed, their populations decimated by disease. The Spanish priest Diego de Landa burned virtually every Maya book in 1562, destroying an entire library of knowledge. Only 4 Maya codices survived. What the Maya and Aztecs teach us is that civilization can emerge anywhere humans settle, given enough time and the right conditions. They had no contact with Old World civilizations, no inherited knowledge of agriculture or metallurgy or writing. They invented everything independently, often arriving at different solutions to the same problems. 5 civilizations, 5 different corners of the ancient world, 5 unique approaches to the same fundamental challenges: how to feed populations, organize societies, record knowledge, and build something that outlasts individual human lives. What connects them? Every single one developed agriculture independently or nearly so, transforming from nomadic hunters to settled farmers. Every one invented writing or complex symbol systems to record information. Every one built monumental architecture that served both practical and symbolic functions. Every one developed mathematics and astronomy to track time, predict seasons, and understand their place in the cosmos. But here's the deeper connection. Every one of these civilizations fundamentally transformed what it means to be human. Before civilization, humans lived in small bands of dozens or hundreds. Survival was immediate, finding today's food, avoiding today's dangers. There was no time for specialized knowledge, no ability to build on accumulated wisdom, no permanence beyond oral tradition. Civilizations changed everything. They created surplus, allowing some people to become full-time craftspeople, priests, scholars, artists. They developed writing, enabling knowledge to accumulate across generations. They built institutions, temples, schools, courts, governments, that could outlast individual lives. They asked big questions about justice, meaning, and humanity's place in the universe. When Hammurabi carved laws into stone, he created the idea that justice should be consistent and public. When Egyptian physicians recorded surgical procedures, they began the long road toward evidence-based medicine. When Chinese philosophers debated ethics, they developed systems of thought still studied today. When Maya astronomers charted Venus, they demonstrated that careful observation and mathematical reasoning could unlock nature's secrets. Every modern convenience we take for granted traces back to these ancient innovations. Writing, mathematics, astronomy, law, medicine, architecture, agriculture, metallurgy, trade networks, government bureaucracy, all pioneered by people working thousands of years ago with stone tools, muscle power, and extraordinary ingenuity. But the civilizations also share something sobering. Everyone either collapsed or was conquered. Mesopotamian city-states fell to successive empires. Egypt eventually succumbed to foreign rule. The Indus Valley civilization vanished mysteriously. Maya cities were abandoned. The Aztecs were conquered. Does this mean civilization is inherently fragile? Maybe. But it also reveals civilization's resilience. When Rome fell, it didn't erase what Rome had achieved. The knowledge spread, transformed, and lived on in Byzantine, Islamic, and European cultures. When the Indus Valley cities were abandoned, their agricultural techniques and some cultural elements likely influenced later Indian civilizations. Chinese civilization endured through multiple dynasties. Maya knowledge survived in scattered communities. Today we're still learning from these ancient peoples. Archaeologists using satellite imagery have discovered thousands of new sites. Linguists are applying artificial intelligence to crack undeciphered scripts. Geneticists are tracing population movements through ancient DNA. Each discovery reveals that these civilizations were more sophisticated, more interconnected, and more innovative than we previously imagined. The Maya mathematical system could inform modern computing. Ancient Roman concrete, which grows stronger over time unlike modern concrete, is being studied to create more durable building materials. Egyptian and Chinese medicine contain treatments that modern pharmacology is rediscovering. Ancient agricultural techniques like chinampas are being revived as sustainable farming methods. These weren't primitive peoples we've surpassed and left behind. They were humans exactly as intelligent as us, solving problems with the tools and knowledge available to them. In some ways, their achievements are more impressive than ours. They built pyramids without computers, performed surgery without anesthesia, calculated planetary movements without calculators, and created art that still moves us millennia later. The greatest legacy of ancient civilizations might be this: they proved humans could do the impossible. Against environmental challenges, resource limitations, and the chaos of nature, they built order. They created beauty. They asked eternal questions and sometimes found answers. They showed that humans aren't just surviving, we're builders, dreamers, and innovators who can create something greater than ourselves. As you walk through your modern city with its grid streets, public water systems, and written laws, remember, you're walking through the legacy of Mesopotamia. When you read books, thank Egypt for showing writing could be more than accounting. When you use standardized measurements, acknowledge the Indus Valley's innovation. When you use paper, remember China. When you check a calendar, think of the Maya astronomers who perfected timekeeping. These ancient civilizations are not dead. They live on in every aspect of modern life, their innovations so fundamental we don't even think about them anymore. The story of ancient civilizations is ultimately the story of human potential. 5,000 years ago, our ancestors looked at the same stars we see, asked the same questions we ask, and built civilizations that still echo in our world today. What will our generation build that people will marvel at 5,000 years from now? What innovations will seem as revolutionary to future humans as writing, mathematics, and agriculture seem to us? What will endure when our cities are ruins and archaeologists excavate our society? The ancient civilizations teach us that the impossible is only impossible until someone achieves it. That knowledge can outlast empires. That human creativity and ingenuity, given time and opportunity, can transform the world. Their monuments crumble, their cities lie in ruins, their languages are sometimes lost. But their legacy is immortal, woven into the fabric of everything we are and everything we do. Which of these ancient civilizations fascinates you most? Are you Team Egypt with their eternal pyramids? Team Mesopotamia for inventing writing? Team Indus Valley for their mysterious disappearance? Drop a comment below and let's discuss. If this deep dive into the cradles of civilization expanded your mind, smash that like button and subscribe for more explorations of history's greatest mysteries and achievements. We're uncovering forgotten empires, lost technologies, and ancient secrets that modern science is only beginning to understand. Hit the notification bell so you never miss when we upload the next episode in this series. Next time, we're exploring the ancient civilizations you've never heard of, cultures that vanished so completely, most history books don't even mention them. Until then, remember, you're living in the house that ancient civilizations built. Walk through it with wonder.